Okay, can we just take a second here? Because this is what is suddenly starting to feel like the garden is finally under control. I mean, the tomatoes are finally starting to happen. The zucchini plant, the leaves are getting so large and lots of little zucchinis are starting to load up. The summer flowers are starting to bloom. Look at that candy cane verbena. And these petunias overwintered and came back from last year. The peppers are peppering. So this would be the perfect time to sit down with an ice-cold glass of lemonade and enjoy the garden. Right? Wrong. Because if you've been gardening even for one season, you know what's coming next. The heat, the pest pressure, the aphids, the powdery mildew, the diseases, and the squirrel crime squad. Hey folks, if we haven't met before, my name is Tara. I garden in the Bay Area, and over here we garden year-round. And it might seem kind of magical to have so many growing days, but it also means that the work never ends. As my daddy used to say, there is no rest for the wicked. Anyway, over here on the GreenLOVE channel, my job is to not just help you grow, but also to love the process of growing. So today is going to be more of a come garden with me kind of video, because I've reached that point in the season where I'm less worried about what's happening today and more worried about what future Tara would wish desperately that present Tara did now. And future Tara would really love to have some tomatoes even in September. By the way, don't these Marguerite daisies look absolutely stunning? And this didn't happen just by accident. I made some deliberate decisions a few weeks ago that caused a second flush of blooms to happen. And that's kind of along the lines that I want to talk to you about today as well. How am I planning today so that I will have a beautiful harvest, beautiful blooms, and less pest pressure, frankly, as the season continues to evolve? I'm even starting to plan for my fall garden. A little bit of planning right now goes a long way to having a long-lasting, beautiful garden. So this is one of my favorite gardening quotes. It's by Audrey Hepburn. It says, "To plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow." And I've got a slightly modified version of that, and it is, "To plan a garden is to believe in tomorrow." So today we're going to be doing some planning. And actually, if you miss the opportunity to do a few things right now, you may be actually spending a lot of money as the season progresses, especially you out there who owns a ton of GreenStalks. You're going to have a lot of empty pockets. How are you going to fill them all? Well, I'm going to help you. I gotcha. So today I'm going to be talking about what I am starting from seed today, what I am planting, how I'm filling those empty pockets, what I am direct seeding, what I'm going to be propagating for free, and that's really important. I'm also going to talk about how I'm deciding what goes into my squirrel-proof enclosure that some of you may have seen in my previous videos, and what stays outside that I'm okay with squirrels either having a share or maybe just planning for those that they are just not interested in. All requires a little bit of decisioning and planning that needs to happen right now. While I'm here, let me just show you a couple of things. Now, this tower I've planted up completely with peppers and with eggplants. Okay, I may have an odd coleus here or there, but for the most part, it's peppers and eggplants. I'm trying to do thematic things where I'm not putting too many things in one green stalk. And then over here, I have got beans. All my beans have sprouted. They were growing beautifully until the squirrels decided that they wanted to dig it all up. So I ended up putting this Tulle. This is that kind of like bridal fabric, Tulle, that's how it's spelt. And it seems like it's working so far. On the other green stalk right behind here, I had put the GreenStalk netting, the insect netting. I thought that that would help, but it didn't. The squirrels or rats, I don't know what, managed to get in and started taking things out. So this morning I came and I replaced it with Tulle as well. So I'm hoping that that is going to work. And then I've got another sad story that I wanted to share with you guys. So this planter over here, this I actually did a complete unstack and I filled it up with soil because I noticed that the water was not flowing properly, and I'm glad I did because there was a lot of dirt in the gray discs in between. But this was intended to be for my micro tomatoes. Let me show you what happened to those. Yeah, so I was growing a whole bunch of micro tomatoes in my greenhouse, so many different varieties. Let me show you what happened to them. You can see over here all these leaves bitten off from my radish. Yep, the culprit is mice, and they took out all my micro tomatoes, you guys. Everything. I mean, these didn't have lids on them, but this thing was full of little tomato plants. I put the lids back because of the mice. Oops. I'm going to destroy whatever I've got left. Everything was taken out. For some reason, they left a few of those, but I'm sure that that was tomorrow night's supply of food for them. But everything is gone, you guys. That's why I've got to start some more seeds. First, let me show you all the seeds I'm going to be starting. Yeah, we're not done with starting seeds. In fact, a lot of seeds can be direct seeded in the garden, which is great. The weather has warmed up nicely. The soil is nice and warm. We can pretty much seed anything directly right now, except those micro tomatoes. Those I'm going to be starting in seed cells, and hopefully the mice won't get them this time. I'm going to take extra precautions. So let me show you what I've got in my box. All right, let's start with beans. Now, these have got to be succession planted because you saw that entire tower of beans that I put up for, those are all bush beans. Those are going to produce their beans within a period of maybe 2-3 weeks, and then they're going to be done for. And I need to get the next batch started right away so that when that's done, I've got the next batch going. I'm going to be doing a lot of preserving this year, at least I'm hoping to. And then, oh yeah, soybean. All those gaps, all those empty pockets that the squirrels or rats or whatever it is that ate my soybean plants, I gotta replant those. And I am so excited to finally start the thing that I've been waiting on the longest, okra. And okra requires really warm soil, like close to 90 degrees plus is what it enjoys. If you plant it sooner than that, it will get stunted. So don't plant your okra out too early, and it also prefers to be direct seeded. It grows so much better when it's direct seeded. Another thing that really enjoys very, very warm soil. Ooh. I've got so many of the same kind of plant that, yeah, I'm gonna have to be choiceful. But yeah, watermelon. I've got so many varieties of watermelon. I don't think I'm going to grow all of them, but maybe a few of each just to see which ones do well for me. And then let's talk about flowers. But before we talk about flowers, one thing that I forgot to bring over here is cucumbers. Cucumbers also, they produce a lot initially, and then they start to taper off. And they taper off pretty drastically, and then powdery mildew hits. And I want to be ahead of that game. So I will be starting cucumbers once every month or so, every 30 days or so. I'll start a new batch of cucumbers all the way through August, September, maybe. We have a really long growing season. Our first frost date is like end of November, sometimes early December. So yeah, plants grow for a long time here. Got a whole bunch of seeds. This year, I'm doubling down on sunflowers, you guys, because every year, all my sunflowers get taken out either at the tiny stage or even when they grow larger. Squirrels and birds take out all my sunflowers, mice too. So this time I'm planting sunflowers in my squirrel enclosure, which I will show you in a little bit. I've already got some going, but I'm going to be planting some more because they seem to be growing really, really nicely. And I've got another, which is, sounds like sunflower, but it's not really. It's called safflower. Isn't this used to make like safflower oil? Yeah, anyway, so this is something that I've never grown before. Apparently it grows well in our climate, so I'm going to try it. The flowers are pretty. And then, of course, zinnias, you guys. I've already got some growing in seed cells, and I'm going to be planting them in my GreenStalks, but these are the larger ones. So these I'm going to be direct seeding, and these also do really well direct seeded. And the way that I direct seed is I actually plant it where my irrigation holes are. I plant the seeds right there. So that way I don't have to worry about making sure that I'm watering them every day. It's just something I don't want to have to deal with. So try to make things easier on yourself. If you've got irrigation, yeah, take advantage of that. And then I skipped a year last year, but this year I want to do it again, is Amaranth. Now this loves the warm weather, grows so quickly. And if you saw my squirrel enclosure, maybe we'll walk over there now. I've got limited space over there, but then I've got a lot of planters outside that I do not want to plant tomatoes and things in because the squirrels just get them. So I'm only planting things that the squirrels are not too interested in. I'm figuring I'll plant things like amaranth and others over there because squirrels won't care about that. So maybe I'll use it for flowers this time. I'm getting more and more into flowers in my garden, much to my husband's chagrin. He wants me to plant more vegetables and I want to plant more flowers, but guess who's the gardener? And then finally, you're not going to believe this, you guys, it is actually time to start fall, winter vegetables in my Bay Area garden. Case in point, Brussels sprouts. Super long growing season, and as soon as the weather warms up in spring, this thing bolts. So my only chance of growing Brussels sprouts successfully here is to start it either in May, latest in June from seeds. It'll grow nicely in the warm weather, and then I will plant it out in fall when the weather cools down, and then maybe I'll get some Brussels sprouts in winter. All right, let's go take a look at the squirrel cage. So while we're walking towards the squirrel enclosure, the main reason I want to take you over there is because I want to talk about propagation. And remember we talked about the GreenStalk pockets? Well, I was just thinking about it. I've got 15 GreenStalks now, and I've got them stacked various heights. Yeah, so I like to stack them about 4 tall or the equivalent. And that's a lot of pockets. So even if you conservatively assume, I've got leaf as well, so those are even shorter. So I've got those stacked at like maybe 5 tall. But either way, if you assume roughly 6 pockets per tier and roughly 4 tiers per GreenStalk, for 15 GreenStalks, that's like conservatively 360 pockets to fill. 360 plants, you guys. That's a lot of plants. And I'm not even considering the fact that I actually plant more than one plant per pocket in my GreenStalks. So yeah, and I'm going to be getting 2 more GreenStalks in summer, that new tomato color as well as that pale green color. So yeah, I'm going to be having 17 GreenStalks. So I'm thinking at least 500 plants to keep all of those pockets happy and filled. Maybe even more. And the thing about GreenStalks is that if you've got a lot of empty pockets, they just don't look good. I would rather just put aside some GreenStalks and only use the ones where I can fill up the pockets, because my GreenStalks need to look beautiful. I don't know about you guys, but I need to have beautiful GreenStalks. If they're not looking good, I'm not feeling good. But anyway, I want to show you how I propagate a lot of plants, and this is the time to do it, because during spring, late spring, is when plants are growing very, very actively, and they are much more likely to take if you try to propagate them from cuttings. So let me show you a few things that I am propagating from cuttings. So let's go into the squirrel cage, which actually is the squirrel-proof cage. Squirrels and mice and rats not allowed. Though squirrels, yeah, we've been able to keep them out. Rats and mice and voles particularly, yeah, they're finding a way in. So I'm going to have to do something about that. Let me show you what kinds of things I'm planting inside the squirrel enclosure. And then outside is going to get the rest of it, and I'll show you that briefly as well. Yeah, so I am just so thrilled, like a kid in the candy store, with this new enclosure, because this was completely off limits for me last year because the squirrels just ate everything. It wasn't worth my time. But this year, oh my gosh, my dahlias, you guys, and my corn is going to be well above knee high by the 4th of July. I think that's, they don't say that anymore, but at one point they used to say knee high by the 4th of July. Mine is going to be, I bet you, 4 feet tall by the time the 4th of July rolls along. And look at my GreenStalk with strawberries. You guys, I posted a video this morning. My strawberries in the GreenStalk are the sweetest I've ever grown, and I did some things differently this time. I mean, I've always had bland, very tasteless strawberries, but this year the strawberries have been amazing in the GreenStalk, best in all of my garden. And I'll put a link to that video where I set it up and what I did differently. But yeah, I'll give you one hint. Fertilization makes a huge difference. And then there are a few other things. So check out that video. So dahlias are one of those plants where you can take cuttings. In fact, you want to pinch them off once you've got about 4 pairs of leaves, you want to pinch off the top, because that will encourage branching, and that means more blooms. And what I do is I tuck in the cuttings, the pinched off cuttings over here and water them, keep them watered well, and they will grow into new plants. It's really cool. Great way to multiply your dahlias. Another plant that you really want to take cuttings for now is tomatoes. And when I say cuttings, I'm actually talking about the suckers. So if you look at this plant, for example, you've got this little sucker growing over here. You can actually break this off, stick it in some water, or actually what I do is I just stick it in the soil over here. I let it grow just a little bit more. I stick it in the soil right next to the mother plant, and because I'm watering the mother plant regularly, the baby will grow as well, and then I will take it and put it in different parts of my garden. But that is just so much faster, such a fast way of multiplying tomato plants rather than starting them again from seed. Now, I know not all of you have a long enough growing season to grow 2 sets of tomatoes, but I actually like growing a second set, and I usually choose determinate varieties or cherry tomatoes, things that produce tomatoes fast, because if I'm starting in June versus in March, I have really shortening that time frame where I'm going to be able to get a harvest. But the tomato plants, the second batch, grow nice and healthy, and they produce quite a bit before the first frost hits. And the older plants, they start to get powdery mildew, fungal disease, blight, and all of that. I'll just pull those out and replace them with new plants. The thing though is you do need to do it right now. The tomato plants, when they're growing at this stage, before they actively start producing flowers and fruit, that's when they're producing those suckers, and that's when you need to harvest them, because once they start actively producing flowers and then fruit, they switch modes and they're not producing that many suckers anymore. So yeah, save some suckers, either for yourself for the second part of the season or to share with friends. My friends are always looking for tomato plants in the latter part, especially in our California long growing season. It's nice to have extra plants to plant out in June. And then perennial flowers like this gorgeous orange wonder snapdragon that I'm growing for the first time this year. It's from Baker Creek. Also creeping verbena right there. I love this. You guys know I love this flower, particularly for my GreenStalk. It does a really nice job filling a lot of empty pockets, but now is the time you want to take cuttings. These are actively growing right now, and you really want to cut them right now. If you do it later in the season, they're starting to dry out. They really won't take. Just one more thing real quick about strawberry plants. Now is the time to take runners as they start to shoot out. You don't need to plant all of them because you do want to have the plant focus some of the energy on fruit as well, but definitely harvest some runners. You can put a little berry cup like this one from the GreenStalk, or you can clip a little red solo cup and then just sort of bury it, wait for it to root, and then you can snip it off from the parent plant. But yeah, definitely multiply some of your strawberry plants. Every year buying strawberry plants does add up eventually. Yeah, why buy plants when you can get them for free? A little bit of pre-planning really saves a lot of money in the long run. So this modern bed from Vego Garden, I love it by the way, is outside of my squirrel enclosure, and I just wanted to show it to you as an example. I've actually got several garden beds that are outside the squirrel enclosure that I've done all kinds of crazy things to keep them out. Nothing has worked. So I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to plant over there. But things like this. This is eggplant, basil, peppers, bitter melon, oh, a random poppy. But yeah, these are things that squirrels just have no interest in, and even rats, they don't really care about it. Rats actually can't climb up the smooth sides of this, so that's kind of nice, but the squirrels, they jump. This is their highway. They run along that highway and then they will jump into my planters from there. So planting these kinds of plants will prevent them, or at least not give them something that they look forward to. So they will leave them alone. They still come and dig over here, and I don't know what they're trying to find. Maybe they think they planted some acorns here. Don't really know. But yeah, beans also, they don't care much for. So I'm growing beans as well outside my squirrel enclosure. Yeah, that limited real estate that I've got inside my enclosure there needs to be saved for other things as well, like watermelons, cantaloupe, all of those things that I want to direct seed. Fortunately, okra, which I'm going to be planting hopefully a lot of, can also go in these outside beds that the squirrels don't really care for. At least I don't think they care for okra. So we'll plant those outside and let's see how that goes. One more really great source for free plants, cuttings of free plants, is next door. So like your neighbors or your local buy nothing group, actually under my grapevine, speaking of free plants, but that's another great thing that you can pick up from your neighbors is cuttings from fig trees, grape plants, grapevines, mulberry trees, berry bushes, all kinds, blackberries, raspberries, etc. All you need to do is get over your awkwardness of asking for free stuff and just put a message out there and say, hey, anyone's got cuttings to share for XYZ. Like I was looking for native plants once and I just put a request out there and one of my really kind neighbors said, come on over, take cuttings of whatever you want. And now is the time that you want to take cuttings of native plants, particularly because they are in active growing mode. So native plants and herbs and perennial herbs like sage, lavender, all of that stuff is growing very actively right now. So now is the time to take it. And similarly, I also share a lot of the things that I plant but don't end up actually growing for myself. Figs, for example, I pruned my fig tree about 3 months ago, and all of the fig cuttings I kind of just stuck in the soil under my fig tree. A lot of them grew. And so one grew actually really well. I posted it on Nextdoor, hey, do you guys want to take a healthy fig plant? And of course it got grabbed right away. And then a lot of other people said, hey, I would have loved to have had it. I would have loved to have a free fig plant. And I noticed that I had several more that were all sort of stuck in there that had rooted that I could share. So a lot of people benefited from those fig cuttings, even though I'm not growing them in my garden. So yeah, pass it along. Do pay it forward, I guess, is the way that I look at it. And plants are so easy because they don't cost you money to share. They just need you to want to share. I got catmint yesterday, and I've been trying to grow catmint for a long time. It's such a pretty plant, and it looks great in borders, but it just is really hard to grow from seed. And a neighbor gave me a whole bunch of catmint plants for free. Let me show you what I did with them. Yeah, so you see these little stakes over here? Well, they are guarding my catmint plants. So I planted them over here, and they're actually pretty close to my hose reel, so I can make sure I keep them watered. That's really important that you keep them watered. But the reason for the stakes is because we keep pulling our hose around the garden, and yeah, you will knock down your freshly planted little cuttings, and you don't want to do that. And the reason for the pot on the top, the terracotta pot over there, is because this can be really dangerous, you guys, if someone trips and falls over it. This is a plastic stake, but there's metal ones as well. And if someone were to fall on that, oh my gosh, I don't even want to think about it. So yeah, these little terracotta pots or whatever, something colorful and obvious will really help keep people from getting into trouble by falling over your stakes. But these stakes are great because the hose won't brush up against the plants. It'll go around the stakes. The stakes will hold them back. But let me show you what I did with the catmint cuttings that I took, because when you want to plant new plants, you want minimum foliage. So what I did was I cut off a lot of the plant, and look what I did with it. So I've got this lovely raised bed that is sitting in a shaded place. I actually kind of use it as a greenhouse, and now it's not a greenhouse anymore, but it is kind of a greenhouse for my cuttings. So see over here, I've got a whole container, a flower box full of little sticks from the top of the catmint plant that I've stuck in the soil, and they are kept nice and warm and cozy by this cover. And it functions kind of, yeah, it is a greenhouse, and it keeps the humidity in, and it helps the cuttings root faster. Over here, just this morning, I put a whole bunch of chrysanthemums. Now, chrysanthemum is also growing very actively right now, and I just love chrysanthemums, and I want to make a lot of them, and now is the time to take cuttings. So I've planted a whole bunch of them after pruning my chrysanthemum bushes. I left the leaves around here because some critters have been getting into this, and they do not like the smell of chrysanthemums, nor do they like catmint. So hopefully that will keep them out of this. But yeah, this kind of space, somewhere shady in your garden, a little container with some soil in it, a little dome on top, will help the cuttings grow really quickly or root really quickly. So one more thing I wanted to show you is my garden, my very large elevated garden bed that I planted up, gosh, a little over a month ago. It is absolutely taken off. I made a short video about it, but I want to actually show it to you up close because, yeah, this is the time of year that everything is absolutely exploding in growth. It almost feels like every day I come out, things have doubled in size, almost. I am exaggerating, but not really. Anyway, let me show you what's going on in this fabulous kitchen garden bed. I've got an entire kitchen garden planted in this 10-foot by 2.5-foot bed. By the way, folks, I am a Vego Garden and GreenStalk Garden affiliate, and I will leave the links in the description as well as discount codes if you want to buy any of their products. But my goodness, you guys, look how large these zucchini leaves are. Look at all these things that are growing in it. Okay, so let me show you. Zucchini. I've got 2 zucchini plants, one at this end of the bed and one at this end of the bed. I've got this little cage around this because I did notice some digging had been happening, and I don't think it was squirrels. I think it was, I had an irrigation tube at the back there, and I think a rat managed to get on it. After I pulled off the irrigation, it seems like the rats have not been able to get on it, which is good. I'm going to have to reinstall irrigation at some point, and I'm going to have to figure that out. But tomatoes, you guys, oh my goodness, this plant has grown so fast. It was a tiny, teeny little thing just about a month ago, and now it has grown, and it has grown, and it has grown, and it is grown past level number 1 of this Flex Grow tomato cage, also a Vego Garden product, but you can stack them one on top of the other, which is really awesome. Solid quality, and this tomato plant is absolutely loving it. It's an indeterminate tomato. It's an Amish paste, one of my favorite paste tomatoes. And I've also got some smaller cages over here because, like I said, you can stack them, but if you don't stack them, they're about that tall. And I've got dwarf tomatoes growing here, and I've got some pepper plants growing here that I am going to have to do something about because these huge zucchini leaves are starting to shade them out. So I'm going to have to prune off some of the leaves, but lots and lots of zucchinis are happening as well. And yeah, the marigolds are here to invite the pollinators as well as hopefully be some kind of a deterrent to pests. I'm not sure whether it works that way, but I'm hoping because everyone says it does. This is cardinal basil, and it is one of the prettiest basils I've ever grown. Gorgeous purple flowers. I've also got Genovese basil. By the way, you guys, this is another thing that you want to take cuttings from. What you want to do is you find a piece of it that has at least a couple of nodes, remove all the leaves, put it in a cup of water, set it on your kitchen windowsill in sort of indirect light for a couple of weeks, and it'll produce roots and you'll have a new plant. Forget about growing from seed. Oh my gosh, grow basil from cuttings, and it's going to grow so much better and bushier instead of lanky like this. I should have taken this cutting a long time ago. It wouldn't have grown so lanky. But yeah, if you want to keep your basil nice and small and bushy and tight and with lots of leaves, take cuttings regularly from them and root some of the cuttings and make new plants. Oh, by the way, I've got peanuts, you guys. Now, if you haven't grown peanuts, they are such a treat to grow. Very unique plant. They produce long shoots, and then they eventually start to produce these shoots that have pegs on them, and the pegs go in the ground, and that's where the peanuts form. It's really fascinating. So they're going to need a lot more room than this. I planted them too close together. I thought that the seeds were not viable, but clearly they were. So yeah, follow along. I will give you updates on how my peanuts do. This is a Virginia peanut. I've got a whole video, by the way, on the different types of peanuts and the ones that we have commonly available. And guess what country produces the most peanuts in the world? Yep, China, followed by India. Anyway, I talk all about it in that video. I will link to it. I've also got pole beans. You guys, pole beans are growing like 6 inches a foot, I don't know, every single day. Yesterday I came out here, they were up to here. Today they're all the way up to there. I've got a bitter melon that's kind of doing the same thing. These plants are taking off. What else do I have over here? Eggplant. Yeah, eggplant is another one. These are all plants, by the way, that my family absolutely loves. So I'm growing only the plants that my family enjoys, including the peanuts. I've got cucumbers. So many different varieties, actually 2 different varieties growing in the back here. This is unagi. It's a parthenocopic variety, so it doesn't need the male-female flower to produce a fruit. And I've got another one over there that's a straight 8. I actually showed this to you guys in a garden tour video just like a week ago, and The plant at that time was just that tall. Now look at it. It started to run. Once it starts to produce these shoots and run, it produces these little tendril kind of things. That's when it really takes off. So it stays kind of small for a while, then it suddenly just absolutely takes off. Yeah, but let me just take a step back over here so you can see the massive size of this bed and all the things that are growing in it. It is just looking phenomenal. I've got a video where I show you exactly how I filled this for very little money, mostly all stuff that I found in my garden, and I've been collecting and making my own compost and things like that. So this bed is doing phenomenally well with all of the love and care I put into the soil mix that is under here. Oh, by the way, some tomatoes that I took and hid away from the rats that also got bitten. These are all dwarf tomatoes that will eventually go in my GreenStalk. And by the way, did you guys know marigolds also you can propagate from cuttings? So take some cuttings from your marigolds, take some cuttings from your zinnias. These are all things that you can propagate from cuttings and make new plants so you don't have to keep buying them. Petunias as well, by the way. Oh, speaking of petunias, right there, I've got a whole bunch of petunias that I've got growing from cuttings that are ready to go in the garden. Yeah, so one thing I wanted to say, a lot of these things that I've been describing to you today, particularly the cuttings, the propagation techniques, etc., those are all things that I do kind of in the flow. It's not something that I decide, okay, today is the day that I'm going to be taking cuttings from my tomato plants or suckers and making new tomato plants, or today is the day that I'm going to be planting catmint cuttings. No, I don't plan these things that way. It's kind of in the flow for me because I've been doing it over the years for many years now. It's become kind of second nature to me. I know kind of when the plant is growing very rapidly, that's the time to take cuttings because all of those growth hormones are very active. And so I just do some pruning, I plant it right away, and I get a new plant. So it gets easier the more you do it. Yep, so Dad up in heaven, I hope you are smiling when you hear your wicked daughter say, "No rest for the wicked gardener." And yeah, this is not work for me, you guys. I enjoy this. I love it. It's hard work, but it's not drudgery. It's something that I just enjoy. It gives me so much comfort and mental health support. My garden is my go-to place, and all the work that I do with it, all the planning that I do, all the organizing that I do around it, it's just amazing. And only a gardener will understand. I hope you enjoyed the video, folks. And until next time, live green and love your greens.